Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. Since September of 2024, Mexico has been rocked by the divide within the Sinaloa Cartel. On one side, of course, we have Los Chapitos, led by Ivan Guzman, a son of El Chapo, along with his brother Jesus Guzman. They are the last two prominent sons of El Chapo, who are currently free and operating in the criminal underworld, following the arrests of both Ovidio and Joaquin Guzman Lopez. They are fighting against a faction known as La Mayiza, who are led by the son of legendary trafficker and Sinaloa Cartel OG, El Mayo Zambada. The son of El Mayo, El Mayito Flaco, turned against and waged war on Los Chapitos following the capture of his father, El Mayo, as it appeared and is likely that Ismael Zambada was set up in an elaborate scheme masterminded by Ivan Guzman. Since then, the war in Sinaloa, particularly in and around Culiacan, has been absolutely brutal. Sinaloa State, while being a hotbed for cartel activity, has never been traditionally one of Mexico's most violent states. When the Sinaloa Cartel have been unified and united, this typically means Sinaloa and cities within, such as Culiacan, remaining relatively calm, as ultimately they are the status quo in the area and have historically outsourced most of their violence to other states. However, this internal war has changed that. Sinaloa in certain areas is now a borderline war zone. To put things into perspective, let's give some numbers. In 3 months, from September to November of 2024, 555 intentional homicides were reported, the majority linked to cartel actions. That is nearly 200 people murdered per month, without including disappearances. Bear in mind, pre-war just a couple of months earlier, the average homicides per month in Sinaloa were around 30 people per month. By June of 2025, authorities estimated 3,000 plus people dead or missing in the conflict, though this does include spillover from the war into other states. This violence is feared to get worse as the Sinaloa Cartel internal war intensifies. Ivan Guzman, leader of Los Chapitos, has been casting a desperate figure, as his side have been suffering more than La Mayiza in the war. Several of his lieutenants have been captured by police, and skirmishes in and around Culiacan seem to be favouring La Mayiza gunmen. One of La Mayiza's tactics in the war has been the targeting of businesses run by Los Chapitos that they use to launder their money through, and as a result this has caused a cash flow issue to a certain degree. There have been reports of discontent among some of Los Chapitos' armed groups, due to a lack of consistent pay, and also a lack of cohesive orders and structure. Throughout the war, many journalists and cartel experts have felt that the conflict ultimately favoured La Mayiza, and while this still may be the case, Ivan Guzman and Los Chapitos are not out of the fight yet, and this was made clear by the announcement that they had aligned with the other super cartel in Mexico, Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generacion, aka CJNG. Armed groups made up of both Chapito and Jalisco gunmen have been reported to have been fighting against La Mayiza groups in rural Sinaloa as well as Zacatecas state. Whether this alliance changes the momentum in the war, or more importantly, whether it stands the test of time, is unknown. However, what it does show is that Ivan Guzman is not out of the fight yet. Speaking of Chapo's kids, there has been a development on Ovidio Guzman, who is currently in the US justice system following his January 2023 arrest and extradition. Ovidio, who goes by the nickname of El Raton, is living up to that moniker, seemingly cooperating and singing like a canary to the US authorities. Recently, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, 35 years old, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of drug trafficking and 2 counts of participation in a continuing criminal enterprise before US District Judge Sharon Coleman in Chicago. He faces a possible life sentence. However, according to the plea agreement filed on June 11th, Ovidio is fully cooperating with prosecutors with hopes of a more lenient sentence. Guzman Lopez admitted to a range of charges in court that detailed when he became involved in his father's operation, the role that he played, and how he had a direct hand in ordering people to be killed. The courtroom revealed interesting details on Ovidio's involvement in the cartel. It was revealed that he became closely involved in the cartel around 2012 at 21 years old, and became a key logistical coordinator in moving illegal drugs from South and Central America to the USA via everything from submarines to tunnels at the US-Mexico border. Ovidio Guzman Lopez also had a hand in making sure profits made it back to the cartel in a variety of ways. Among the ways they laundered money, cartel operators relied on cryptocurrency, prosecutors claim. But most damning for Ovidio is that US prosecutors tied him and his brothers to 3 killings, both in the US and in Mexico. "Do you admit your participations in the kidnapping and murder plans?" the judge asked. "Yes," Ovidio Guzman replied. The first listed victim in the indictment was a member of the Damaso Lopez faction of the Sinaloa Cartel, who was killed on the 30th of December 2018. Jesus Antonio Munoz Parra, also known as Tony Montana. Another victim, the cousin of Damaso Lopez Serrano, El Minilik, Mario Nungaray Bobadilla, also known as Libre, who was killed in Phoenix, Arizona on the 6th of May 2021. And lastly, Giovanni Hurtado Vicente, also known as Amigo, who was killed on the 21st of October 2021 in Mexico. All 3 of these murders have been tied to Chapo's sons, and Ovidio seems to have taken responsibility. Details on Ovidio's plea agreement are hazy to say the least. However, his attorney, Jeffrey Lightman, has insinuated that his client could shed light on corruption in Mexico, and also criticized comments from Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum that the US was negotiating with terrorists in agreeing a plea deal with Ovidio. US District Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman delayed sentencing for Ovidio. Another hearing is expected in 6 months' time. Whether Ovidio cooperates enough to get the lenient sentence he is after remains to be seen, but the plea agreement has caused a great deal of controversy. Time will tell whether this was a smart move, both on the US side of things as well as for Ovidio. Keeping on Los Chapitos, another rather interesting story emerged over the last few weeks, detailing the involvement of a high-profile Mexican boxer within the cartel world, that being Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the son of Mexican boxing legend Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Just a few days after his fight with Jake Paul, Chavez Jr. was arrested by ICE agents for overstaying his visa and lying on a green card application. He faces deportation to Mexico, where he faces organized crime charges, according to US officials. According to Mexico's Attorney's General Office, FGR, recently arrested boxing figure Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. allegedly served as a henchman for Néstor Isidro Perez Salas, aka El Nini, who was once the head of security for Los Chapitos. Through information allegedly obtained through legal wiretaps between 2021 and 2022, Chavez would beat cartel members who had made mistakes that put the organization at risk. Wiretaps of alleged drug traffickers and also immigration records shared by US agencies were presented as evidence as well. In one of the cited calls, a subject identified as HNI2 reported that El Nini had ordered a subordinate to be hanged as if he were a punching bag, and then called upon the boxer Chavez Jr. to physically punish him. These punishment beatings were allegedly doled out for mistakes that wouldn't have warranted death. The cartel member had brought his girlfriend with him to a safe house where kidnapped hostages were being held. In a call, HNI2 says that that's why he calls Julio, to beat them up, to hang them, and this one, Julio Cesar beat him like a punching bag, the FGR report reads. He says that when Chavez fought Canelo to last for 12 rounds, he said that the guy is stupid, he's strong. Canelo hit him but he endured it, so imagine the beating he gives them. He also claimed that El Nini tells his victims, if you can endure the blows from that guy, Julio Cesar, then he's going to leave you there, and if not, well, you're going to die. Another conversation intercepted by FGR, this time between high-ranking cartel members Marx Garcia Rodriguez, L22, and German Gonzalez Mongeraz, again mentions Chavez Jr. Garcia Rodriguez mentions that Nini has gotten into trouble, and that he's now been hanging around with musical artists as well as YouTubers such as Marquitos Toys, as well as Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and that when they called him at night, they were there, the report states. They were concerned with Nini's relationship with these figures, as they were high-profile public individuals. In a video found by Milenio, Marquitos Toys can be seen alongside the boxer, showing off some luxury cars. In the recording, the influencer can be heard telling Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. that he's hesitant to upload the video since it features a Lamborghini, and people are going to start wondering where the money is coming from. The boxing legend's son replies that it's fine, that it's what he deserves. Authorities allegedly discovered that the vehicle seen in the video belonged to El Nini's collection of luxury cars. They also apparently discovered that the vehicle was on a property linked to the Sinaloa Cartel. The Chavez Jr. story as a boxing fan hardly surprised me, as there have been rumours for years about his links with drug traffickers, including his relationship with Frida Munoz, who was previously dating Edgar Guzman Lopez, a deceased son of El Chapo. In fact, Jr.'s father, Chavez Sr., also admitted that when he was fighting, he knew all of the Mexican narco-traficantes. They would flock to see him after his fights. These figures included the likes of El Chapo and the Arellano Felix brothers. Through these relationships, Chavez Sr. would develop his well-documented cocaine habit. During one fight, Chavez Sr. walked out with Francisco Arellano Felix to the ring. Chavez Sr.'s explanation for his friendship with high-ranking cartel leaders is simple. According to him, it was better to be friends with them rather than be their enemies. Despite his admitted ties to cartel leaders, it's doubtful that Chavez Sr. engaged in any criminality, though the links are there. We shall see what happens with the Chavez Jr. story. Though it is certainly bizarre, what I don't understand is why the US authorities didn't capture Chavez Jr. prior to his fight with Jake Paul. I mean, he wasn't exactly hard to find. He was doing public press conferences and promoting the fight, as well as training in America. Those are just a couple of recent updates in regards to the cartel world and the current landscape. As always, we will continue to report on such developments. However, it's time to now start discussing the more brutal elements of cartel business, the filmed murder videos. I'll cover two clips in question, one a definite cartel video, though the other being attributed to cartels by several people, though I remain unconvinced. It's a video that I found literally no context for online, and the reason I'm including it on this video is to see whether any of you watching have any answers. But nevertheless, what happens in the actual videos? The first video in question is the one with no context nor backstory behind it. Again, I've been told it's a cartel video by a few people, but I have my doubts. The video in question is 56 seconds in length, and the quality of said clip is fairly poor, leading me to believe that it may be several years old. I've no idea as to when the video was released. Let's talk about the setting of the video first. It's been recorded during daytime, seemingly on a farm-type location. It looks like the video may have even been filmed in an old tin shed or barn. There's a corrugated metal wall in the background. You can see a shirtless man laying face first on the ground, and his hands have been tied behind his back. I believe he also has a gag in his mouth, though it's hard to tell due to the quality of the footage. Standing near the victim is a man who is wearing jeans with a multicoloured coat, and he's carrying a wood splitting axe, so I'm sure where you can guess this is going. As the victim is laying on the ground, the man with the axe then goes to work, though he doesn't use the blade side of the axe. Instead, he uses the back of the axe to smash down onto the back of the victim's neck, right below the bottom of the skull. He smashes it down incredibly hard, causing a loud thudding noise. This causes the victim to let out a deep continuous groan, so the person with the axe then repeats, swinging down again, this time appearing to totally incapacitate the victim. He then throws the axe aside, and then somebody else enters shot, and this person drags the unconscious victim over to a freshly dug deep hole. This murder is ultra premeditated. Not only has the grave been dug already, but it's also been partially filled with a white chalk-like substance, which I presume is lime to help prevent the smells of decomposition of the body. They essentially drag the victim over to the hole, and hover his head over the hole, acting as a way to ensure blood isn't on the surface of the ground, instead that it just goes into the grave. With the victim's head hanging over the side of a makeshift grave, the person who incapacitated the victim with the axe then takes a machete and he proceeds to slice the throats of the unknown captive. Blood stains the white lime-covered grave, making the side of a hole look like a waterfall. or should I say bloodfall. The blade is incredibly sharp, and it's apparent that the carotid arteries are severed incredibly quickly due to the sheer amount of blood. The video takes a brief jump cut, and it still shows the killer slicing through the victim's neck, but at this point, you hear the sounds of breathing, or attempted breathing, coming from the captive, and they are incredibly high-pitched. I don't want for this to come across disrespectful, however, the sounds are akin to a pig screeching, but even more high-pitched. It's worth noting that you do hear people in the background very faintly whispering throughout the video, but they aren't really loud enough for me to discern what language is being spoken. The killer then hits the spine with his blade, and finally, the horrific wheezing sounds stop, appearing that the captive has finally passed away. Though at this point, the murderer appears to have completely given up the beheading. In fact, he casts a frustrated figure, and he then ushers a hand gesture to the person filming. This is where the video ends. It's just a bizarre and brutal clip. It follows the premeditated and systematic savagery that we see in cartel videos, but at the same time it feels slightly different than the usual, which really makes me question its origin. I just have no idea where this video is from, and I could do with your help. If anyone knows of this video from the limited still images that I can show you, please feel free to get in touch to put this mystery to bed. The next video, however, has no mystery behind it. It's a standard cartel video, filmed by, I believe, the Sinaloa Cartel, fitting with the overall theme of this video. To be precise, I think that the perpetrators are a faction belonging to the Zambadas. The video itself has a backdrop that has become synonymous with certain cartel videos, a white-tiled bathroom, and to boot, they have a playlist of music going on in the background, possibly to drain out the possible sounds. The video in question is 2 minutes and 9 seconds in length. In relation to when it was released, I've seen this video around for at least a couple of years, though it could be slightly older. As you play the video, you are met with the sight of a captive, a shirtless man, who is sitting in a shower cubicle, and the cubicle itself is small. It looks to be a residential home, possibly a cartel safe house. You hear that the shower is also running in the background. As the victim is sitting, a man can be seen partially standing next to the cubicle, carrying the cartel execution weapon of choice, a machete. The victim has his head leaning down, just preparing for the end. No sounds or no pleas for his life. Suddenly, the hitman utters a couple of words before he smashes the machete down hard onto the back of the captive's neck, causing a massive thud that echoes throughout the tiled room. The captive recoils in pain but makes no sound whatsoever. He still continues to sit on the shower floor. The Sicario then strikes him hard again in the exact same position, though this time, the victim falls out of the shower door, and you see him bleeding on the bathroom tiles. I think this blow knocked out the victim or possibly even broke his spine, as he becomes very limp at this stage. The Sicario then lifts the victim back into the shower, putting him back into the sitting position. He strikes once more behind the neck, whilst also holding the victim by the hair, but the captive then collapses onto the shower floor, which is already starting to fill with blood. At this point, the hitman cuts the rope that has bounded the victim's arms, and he begins sliding the shower doors open to give himself more room to go to work, so to speak. The video then jump cuts, and it shows the Sicario at the end of hacking off the victim's left arm, which he then seems to place in a bag off camera. Someone in the video can be heard shouting "What's up, Haliskas?" seemingly indicating that the victim is associated with CJNG. The butcher of a hitman then proceeds to cut off the victim's left leg at the knee, and he cuts in between the knee joints incredibly efficiently, removing the lower leg in a matter of seconds. He's definitely dismembered bodies before. The corpse at this point is completely drained of blood. The victim's right leg has already been severed, which wasn't recorded, as have both of the victim's arms at the shoulders. The shower cubicle is now a pool of blood. The water that is also running doesn't seem to be draining efficiently. At the end of the video, the Sicario once again tries to cut off a head. However, due to the tight space of the cubicle, he really struggles, and a couple of hitmen in the background can actually be heard laughing at this. They find it funny. The video ends here as the victim's limbless body lays in the shower cubicle. But anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it if you can enjoy this sort of content. Of course, if you're new here, hit that like, smash subscribe, that would be amazing. Links to my Twitch, my Twitter, will be in the pinned comment below, as always. And yeah, if you could check those out, that would be amazing. But anyway guys, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.